Hi guys! Welcome to my channel. I am Jinan Seoul, and today I'm going to explain some of the English language fashion terminology that are used differently in Korea. So if you've ever shopped at YesStyle and you've gone like, huh, this is not what this item is called, so why are they calling it that? Then in this video, I'm going to explain some of that terminology for you. The first and probably the word that I see most often misused is the word man to man. It's sometimes abbreviated as MTM. So what the hell is a man to man? A man to man is the Korean word for a sweatshirt, and the word sweatshirt is pretty much never used in Korea. A lot of normal people will not be able to recognize the word sweatshirt if you wrote that in Korean. And the reason that they call sweatshirt man to man is a bit of a scotch tape kind of situation where the brand name for a product stuck as the generic word. So to go a little bit into the history of the word man to man, sweatshirts were first mass manufactured and sold in Korea in 1974 by a company called Sungdo Fibers. And at that time, the brand name for the product sweatshirt was Man to Man, and it was the product made by this company, Sungdo Fibers. You might actually be familiar with the expression man to man from sports. It is a word for a defense technique in team sports like basketball and football, where one player from a team defends another player from a different team. And I'm suspecting the brand name man to man came about because sweatshirts are supposed to be sports apparel. And as an aside, if sweatshirts are man to man, then what are sweatpants? So the word sweatpants is actually starting to be used more and more often, unlike the word sweatshirt, which is still pretty much never used. However, classic sweatpants, as you might know it, are not very popular in Korea. What is popular are joggers instead, so they will be made from thinner fabric and they will have the big elastic band at the ankles. And those are just gonna be called jogger pants. Otherwise, sweatpants are also likely to be just called fleece-lined training pants. Another very commonly misused word is the word polati. Polati actually refers to a regular turtleneck shirt. This word is a little bit old. It's not as widespread these days as the word man to man. People will use the word turtleneck or mokti instead, which mokti just means literally neck tee in Korean. So those are also used frequently, but you'll see like older people use the word polati a lot. The word polati used to be much more prevalent a couple decades ago. Still, a lot of stores that target younger people will use this word today. And the origin of this word is a little less clear. I've heard that polati actually comes from the word polo tee, as in like the casual colored t-shirts. But I kind of doubt that because polati turtleneck tees look nothing like polo tees. Also, I've never ever heard anybody refer to a turtleneck tee as polo tee, although a lot of people still call it a polati. Another thing to note is that turtleneck dickies are actually called mokpola, which literally means neck pola in Korean. So I've actually never seen turtleneck dickies in America, but they used to be really popular a few decades ago. I remember a lot of other kids wearing it for warmth in like kindergarten and elementary school. And if you watch the show Reply 1988, one of the characters in the show wears this a lot. It's not a full turtleneck shirt that he's wearing. He's just wearing a dickie because that was very popular back then. So the more you know. The next term is almost always used differently in Korea, and that is the word bustier. It's usually pronounced closer to the French word like bustier. And as you know, in English-speaking countries, a bustier is a type of undergarment that looks like a corset with a bra attached. And in Korea, this means basically any type of sleeveless top or dress where you're supposed to wear something underneath it, like a t-shirt. And this actually includes all kinds of things, like what you would call like a pinafore dress or a regular slip dress. And what it does not include is overall dresses that look like denim overall jeans but with skirts, because that has a totally different word. So I'm not sure why this term started to be misused, but I think it's because of the different modesty standards in Korea. First of all, not a lot of people wear the full bustier as an undergarment these days. And it would be very inappropriate to wear a straight up lingerie bustier as a top outside in Korea, like you sometimes see in Western countries. And I think that makes sense because it's underwear. However, it's also considered very risque to wear spaghetti straps or any kind of sleeveless top in a lot of situations. I've personally been yelled at for wearing something sleeveless in an office in Korea, and at most workplaces, you probably wouldn't get away with something sleeveless, even if it was a casual office. And you would find a lot of people just staring at you if you wore a regular slip dress outside, even in the summer heat, and it gets really hot and humid in Korea. So I think what happened is companies started selling these tops, which can sort of be considered bustiers, with the intention of them being layered over t-shirts. And then the meaning of the word was expanded to dresses with similar designs, and finally, pretty much any sleeveless top or dress which are supposed to be layered over a t-shirt. So I found that a lot of sellers on YesStyle will still list their sleeveless tops and slip dresses as bustiers. And if you are confused about that item description, this is why. I've already talked about this next word in my Fall Korea haul video, and that is handmade coats. First of all, handmade is a type of sewing technique for outerwear, so the use of the word handmade is limited to coats and jackets. And I'm not a sewist, so I don't have in-depth knowledge of how this process works, but basically handmade coats are made by putting two layers of fabric together and then stitching them. Unlike regular coats, which are just one layer of fabric and then maybe the lining. And the confusing part about this is that handmade coats are not 100% hand-stitched. A lot of the construction is just done on a sewing machine, and only some parts are hand-stitched, if it's hand-stitched at all. So in reality, handmade coats just refer to lightweight coats, and they are usually online because they're already made by putting two pieces of fabric together. And a lot of them will come with like a small tag on your sleeve that says handmade. You can take it off or you can just leave it on. I think a lot of people leave it on these days. And another thing to note is that a coat being labeled handmade is definitely not a statement on its quality, although the higher prices will correlate with higher quality. At any price range, a handmade coat is not supposed to be worn during the freezing winter. Especially if you paid less than about $300 or so, then you basically should expect it to be a more put together looking cardigan. So make sure to have that in mind before you buy a really cute handmade coat and then realize that you can't wear it past November. But if you're looking for something cozier looking and a little bit thicker than a trench coat, then a handmade coat is going to be the perfect way for you. The last word is another type of winter outerwear, and that is Mustang jackets. No same person buys a Ford in Korea, so Mustang is not a car there. I mean, Mustang is a car, but the coats are pronounced and written differently. They're pronounced like Mustang. But seriously, muscle cars are not a thing in Korea, so whenever you hear Mustang, it's not gonna be a Mustang. Mustang coats are what English speakers call like a leather jacket with Sherpa or shearling trim. And it's a little different from just a leather jacket or a Sherpa jacket because the body and the sleeves have to be in leather, and all the shearling and Sherpa trim is on your collar and at the end of the sleeves and at the hem of the jacket. And the leather itself can be any kind. It can be smooth or suede. So I was actually able to find an article about the origin of this word. The first appearance of this word was in a newspaper article in 1987 about a department store having sales for their fur jackets and leather jackets. And they had three categories of these jackets. The first one was fur. That's a straight up fur jacket with the fur on the outside. The second category was semu, which comes from the French word chamois, which is like a type of leather. And that's just a straight up leather jacket, no fur. And the third type was Mustang, and that's a leather jacket with fur on the inside. The word Mustang itself is speculated to have come from the French word mouton, which is another type of leather. And Mustang jackets are a very specific style, and they have been popular for the past few years. So if you wanted one of those and didn't know what they were called, now you know what they're called so that you can search for it. And that was a roundup of 5 fashion terms that are used differently in Korea. If you thought this video was helpful, I would love to hear about it in the comments. And as always, any other questions about Korean words or any other fashion terms are also welcome. And I actually didn't know how a lot of these words originated, and this was actually really fun for me to research, so I might do another video like this if I can think of more words. Please subscribe to get notified when the next video comes up, and I will see you next time. Bye!